Hello, welcome to Mowgli TV. Today we're going to talk about envelopes. Envelopes are something that gets overlooked quite often when you start VJing because they're at a secondary level of the depth of the interface. So let's do a little demonstration. I've got a clip here with BPM audio shapes, which is available to buy from Gumroad, link in the description, and let's just trigger this. And if you're not familiar with this source, it creates a series of geometric shapes. You've got a lot of control of the animation and the way they look. Basically, when you're using something like this, it always pays off to spend a little time tweaking it to your liking and assigning some animation settings to some of the parameters to actually turn it into something that's unique to you and specific to what you're trying to do. So envelopes come in really handy for this kind of thing. Let's just look, for example, at the shape thickness parameter here. If you click on it, you can assign all these different things to the speed at which that parameter is going to run through. And then below that, you've got envelope. That's why I said before that it's like at a secondary level. If I just go to BPM sync, for example, now you'll see that this shape thickness parameter is animated according to our BPM. We've got 4 beats here, so you can adjust that. But the fun here really lies when you start using envelopes. So if you go to your envelopes to enable it, you start off with a default linear envelope, which is basically what you get if you don't tweak any further. And while this is handy and useful for many situations, there's some more exciting ones that you can use. As a quick demo, let's just start with the digital one. There's some handy presets already saved with Resolume, and you can save your own, which is extremely useful. So we just set the digital one there, and now, as you can see, that is flashing on and off. But beyond that, I mean, we could adjust how much it grows at different points. So this is what envelopes could do at their most basic level. Let's just scan quickly through some of the presets to see how they behave. I've got some other ones that are not actually the default ones from Resolume that I've saved over time. But for example, if you go to noise, you'll get a kind of a random envelope, which can be very handy for a lot of things. Bear in mind that if you apply one of these envelopes and you don't quite like what it's doing or its behavior, you can edit the points easily. If you just select a point, you can move it, or if you double click, you can delete it, which is very handy. You can quickly shape things to your liking. For example, if this is going too fast, you can extend the length of the envelope. It's set to 4 beats, as you can see here at the moment. So if I just double that, you'll see that it slows down the motion. So envelopes can be used for infinite things, really. I'm going to go through 3 different examples of what you can use them for that will hopefully trigger your own imagination to start using envelopes in other places for other uses and see how incredibly useful they are for absolutely everything. I've got this audio loop here, which is currently set to play in timeline. I'm just going to switch that to BPM, and that brings us those beat markers, which are very useful when you're trying to synchronize things together. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place this audio clip on top of my generative source, so I'll be an audiovisual clip. If you're not familiar with how to do that, you basically click Shift and you drag it over, and as you see, it says merge now, so that will make one audiovisual clip. So if we now play this, you'll see that the sound and the visual are playing together. This is gone back to playing in timeline, so let's put it on BPM sync. And we've got this audio loop is basically 12 beats long. So let's change the envelope we've got here to 4 on the floor. This is currently playing at 32 beats, while this is 12 beats. So basically we want to divide that. Want to set that to 4. And you'd see that instantly the animation is going in sync with the beat of our audio clip, which is very useful. You don't need to have an audio clip playing on that. You could just be using the same technique with the audio coming from the DJ or whatever that might be. But as you can see, it's a very easy way to synchronize what your visuals are doing with your beat. Now, when you've got an audiovisual clip like this, you can take this one step further. Basically, you could tailor this envelope to go exactly with what the music is doing on your audio clip. So as you can see here, the audio is 12 beats long. So let's just make this envelope here 12 beats long, so the duration of the envelope corresponds exactly with the duration of the audio clip. So you just go in there and put 12 on, and now we can start playing with our envelope. So I'm just going to speed this up so that you see I'm adding basically some keyframes to each beat, and then every fourth beat the envelope goes a bit higher. So basically it's going exactly with what the audio clip is doing. Let's play this, and as you can see, the animation is perfectly in sync with what the audio clip does. You could push this a lot further. I mean, this is a very simple example of how you can actually tailor a specific animation to a specific audio clip. And on that subject, a little tip for you is that if you're struggling to get your points, keyframes in the envelope exactly where you want, it might be useful to just stretch your panel a bit so that you've got more real estate to be more accurate when you place your dots. So you can do this. You can make it full width of your screen if you want, and it does help a lot to be more accurate while you're placing your points in the envelope. Another thing you could do with this is very simply, you can go here to this menu, scroll down and save this envelope. So you've got it there for future use, and you don't need to use it only for this specific audio clip. It's a good way of creating envelopes, just putting some sample audio in there and doing some animation that goes with that. It makes for a more dynamic feel of the animation than just making it up on the spot, blind or deaf, if you will. If you're actually using music as a template for your animation, it's very likely that it will fit a lot of dance music because structures tend to be similar. And in any case, it's a good way to build up your envelopes for future use. This technique of using envelopes with a music clip on there and tailoring your animation to the music is extremely powerful, and it allows you to create music videos that are entirely in sync. It's very easy to then export this video using the render function and process it further in any editor of your choice if you want, and actually create music videos that can be used outside of Resolume. So I really recommend that you experiment with this because it opens up the doors for a lot of uses for Resolume that you might have not considered in the past. Let's jump back into Resolume, and for starters, let's just clear this envelope. Another use for envelopes is to tailor your sound reaction. You can really tweak the way the sound reaction works by placing an envelope on the sound reactions. So we've got the shape thickness parameter here, and let's just assign clip FFT. Now let's open the settings to see what's happening here. So let's adjust the gain a bit and limit it to maybe the bass. Let's bring the bracket across to focus more on that area so it's going all the way up. So now you could tweak how this behaves using the gain and fall settings, which we can do. But if you want to tweak this further, there's a lot you can do. So let's start by adding an envelope here. So that's the default one, it's the linear one at present, so it's just going up like that. But what happens if we distort this? So let's add another point here. Let's bring this down, and then let's add another point here and bring that down. So you see that door that's bouncing, it's going past our reaction there. So what we need to do is adjust that to our liking. And as you can see, the way the sound affects the growth of our shapes has changed quite dramatically. And if you go a bit further than this and start tweaking what the points curve is assigned to, it's linear in this case, but you can see how the flash becomes a bit faster, a bit more intense. The possibilities of this are absolutely limitless. So I recommend that whenever you're using FFT, although it might be okay as it comes with a default linear envelope, it really pays off to have a little play with the envelope because you can shape it in many different ways. I've got it right now set to what would be an attack, decay, release kind of setting, which is similar to the default one that comes here. You've got ASR and ADSR. That's attack, decay, sustain, and release. And this is attack, sustain, release, which are terms that come from envelopes used in audio and music making. So if we just apply that one, and we'll have to bring down the gate so that it plays nicely through it. So right now, there is no space for the decay to trigger it to come into play. So if we just move that down there, add another point there, reset the curve. Again, like I've said for the other technique, what I've shown you here is the very basics of how you can use an envelope to enhance the way the sound reaction works. But there's a lot more that you can do with this. In the example I've shown, the envelope just goes through what would be the first hit of the sound reaction, if you will. But your envelopes can be a lot more complex than that. Let's just quickly go into what I mean. In this example, you can see that the envelope's got 2 peaks on it. What this means is that as the sound gets louder, you go through the envelope, making it peak twice with a single instance of the sound getting louder, which means that you can make more hectic sound reaction. This can be applied to all kinds of things. So if you've got, rather than right now where we're targeting the bass area, mainly the kick drum, but you could do an envelope that's targeted more towards the mid-range of the music. So if you've got something that is progressively building up, you can have an effect, or if it's a generative source, some parameter in the generative source, getting progressively more intense as the sound becomes more intense, not necessarily tied to like a hit of a kick drum, but the general volume of what the music is doing, which can be very useful so that you can focus on other things while this is taking care of whether the music is getting a bit more hectic or a bit louder. The last tip for this video is to use envelopes as a spare pair of hands. This is really handy because it gives you time to think and tweak other things, while the mix can be kind of pre-built using envelopes and you can let it play. Let's go into Resolume. So here I've got 2 clips from my VJ pack BEATAGON, which is available on Gumroad, link in the description. And they're just playing one on top of each other, so they do this composite between them both. So something you could do to enhance the way these 2 clips work together and make them a bit more dynamic is to select the top clip, for example, and then if we go to the opacity of the clip and then go to BPM sync, and next we add an envelope and we select digital, which is basically a square wave, which is on and off, and maybe adjust the length of it so it's a bit longer. So maybe let's say 16 beats long. What we've created here is an automatic mix between those 2 clips. As in every 4 beats, the top clip disappears and then appears for another 4 beats and then disappears, which is something that you could be doing by hand, by triggering the clip on and off or jumping to a different clip, but you can have it already automated, and it's very simple to duplicate that clip so that then you remove the opacity of it, and now you've got the options of having that clip permanently on, or if you want it to be flashing, you can just trigger it, and you can easily label these clips so that you know what's doing what. You can make this faster if you want, just by dividing, so that it's creating a flash of the clip several times a beat, which can be very useful to construct strobing sequences and things along those lines. That's it for this video. Please like and subscribe as always. It really does help my channel. And I hope you've learned a few techniques and I've given you some inspiration to try out new things and start exploring envelopes, because they can really up the game of what you do with Resolume and take it to the next level. Hopefully I've sparked some creativity and you'll try some things and have fun with it. I'll see you next time.